All right. So what we're going to talk about today is you've just gotten a listing and the seller's going, well, I'm hearing that there's no commissions I have to pay anymore. How does that work? What's going on? Here's the thing. Nothing's really changed. We've always had commissions that have been flexible or negotiable. They still are. We're going to cover a couple things like, all right, how do we have a conversation with a seller and explain to them how this really can lay out? How do we value ourselves and what we do? Because remember, a seller is now under the impression, very possibly, that, hey, I just pay you whatever that fee is, and you take care of everything, and you bring the buyer and do everything else, and it's all set and it's good and it's great. And well, that's terrific, but let's be perfectly frank. And this is the conversation we're going to have to help them with. There are literally thousands of buyers out there. Yes, our job is to showcase their home. And quite honestly, our job is to attract a buyer. And if you're listening to this part, if you're on the call right now, this is the part that is really kind of the most important. Let's say I attract a buyer. This is my position, doesn't have to be yours. I obviously am going to do an adjustment because I'm handling all sides of it. So I have more control, which means I'm not chasing and hurting a buyer agent. That's a lot of work. So you're going to receive a savings for sure. But let's also consider that there are tens of thousands of buyers out there. My job is to make sure our home is exposed properly. Y'all pay attention to this. We have to be great at marketing and communicating our marketing to our sellers. My job is to market your home, get it exposed, to help you negotiate, to hopefully work with a buyer. But realistically, with tens of thousands of buyers out there, we have a high probability that I won't. I'm going to strive to, but there's a good chance that that buyer is already going to be in a relationship with another real estate agent. That's okay because I'm a better negotiator. Our job is then to get the maximum amount of money for you, net proceeds, period. If I'm representing the buyer, I can assure you I'm going to be bringing an offer higher than anything else because we'll have a little bit of a savings of what we'd normally cooperate. And it will have to be a better offer because we're ultimately going for the best net proceeds. In all circumstances, it's about the most. So let's go into this real quick. How do you talk about commissions? It's pretty straightforward. I would suggest, I'm going to back up. When you're talking about commissions, for you to have an informed conversation about commissions, you, me, Jackie, everybody else, bloody well better be comfortable with their listing presentation and know the value you're bringing forward. Now, for a lot of us, it's like, oh my God, but I don't really know what my value is. You don't have to own it. I'll own it. I'm not 100% sure. What value am I really bringing? There's an easy workaround for this, and it'll cost you money. I'm just telling you, but it'll only cost you $60. If you, or you can watch tutorials on it and create your value proposition based on that. When you take a listing, I would strongly encourage for those that don't have a full suite of marketing already built out and know exactly what they're going to be doing and they've got it planned and strategized, they know exactly what happens. I would strongly encourage investing in listingstoleads.com. Okay, here's why. They have a systematic marketing plan set up. Is it the best? Absolutely not. Is it better than almost everything else out there? 100%. Now, you can go to YouTube and you can say, okay, the benefits of listings to leads, there's a ton of information out there. But if you don't know what you're going to do, we're going to run into a struggle with your ability to have a great listing presentation and be able to have a conversation about it. So again, listings to leads gives you your basic start. It's $60 a month up to 10 listings. By the way, if you're going to make the financial investment as opposed to going to YouTube, and I wouldn't necessarily talk you out of it, I think that's a good idea. There's also a ton of landing pages in there, like the seller value landing pages, and you can use up to 10 listings to push out, which means call a friend and say, hey, do you mind if I market your and expose your listing out and kind of bump it out a little bit? I'd love to get you a little more traffic. If I can bring a buyer, great. Either way, you can tell your seller that you're continuing to market the listing everywhere. Why would they say no? Chances are they won't. Now you've got it. You paid for it. See if it can do some stuff for you. Okay, listingstoleads.com. Now, I use listings to lead, as does my wife. We have a lot of other things we do as well, because when I go to a listing appointment, I have to know that I'm bringing forward an action plan for them. I have to justify the commissions that I'm looking for. Now, I am a negotiating expert. My wife is a certified negotiating expert. If you're not, You probably want to consider becoming a certified negotiating expert. I think it's like $200, or just have a conversation. By the way, everybody here who has a child is a certified negotiating genius. Also, if you don't have a child and you are in a challenging relationship or have ever been in a challenging relationship with, let's say, I don't know, a narcissist or an egomaniac, you are a negotiating expert already. Okay? That goes out to everybody. I think there's a couple of you that are going, I get this. We market, negotiate, and protect. That's what we're doing. Okay? So the commission comes up, and here's the conversation. Our mission is to get them to 5% or 6% if that's what you're doing. And I'm totally okay with that. I want to start from where we were. Let's have a conversation, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, about the commission structures and how those work. We have to consider that most people out there looking for homes have some form of representation, and the commission is and always has been negotiable. The standard practice has been 2.5% or 3%, whatever you want to say, that we're co-broking, offering up as a cooperative commission to the representative of the buyer or seller. Now, here's a funny little fact. Pay attention to this one. Did you know that when a home is offered for sale by owner and there's no commission being offered at all, that the appraised value of that property can realistically be adjusted down 5 to 6% because it's kind of built into the price? And without it, we can do it. So think about it this way, Mr. Seller. If you were buying a home that was offered for sale by owner and the seller was paying no commission, let's say it was a $500,000 home, and they were saving $25,000 in commissions, wouldn't you want to save some of that too, since you're basically bringing everything you need to buy the home? In every circumstance, well, yeah, of course, that's the same situation. I'm not advocating that we have to pay top dollar commission, because it would be foolhardy for me to say that. What we're now able to do is we're able to negotiate that. Whereas before we had a cooperation that was put forth right off the bat. Now we get to negotiate. And you know who controls that negotiating? You do, as it should be. So I'm an advocate for this. I believe that we should be prepared for what would be the worst case scenario, and that is standard market procedures. In our market is 5%, 6%. By the way, y'all remember this real careful. In a declining market, which is coming, in a challenging market where inventory is going up, that's already everybody. Wait to see what happens in July and August. And I say that because the market ends, the normal buying market nationwide ends about mid-July to the 1st of August, where there's a lot of activity. And then we start to see our closes all the way through August. That's where our huge activity level is. There's no indication that there is going to be a reduction in the real estate, or excuse me, in the commissions. My mistake. In the interest rates, holy smoke, had trouble with that one. There is no indication there's going to be a reduction in the interest rates anytime soon, because we still have an inflation issue, which means, in my opinion, that we're going to have elevated interest rates throughout, which is going to suppress, as it already has, the current buyer's market. Ali Pertovi, you're on the call. Ali is my lending partner extraordinaire. Ali, if I can get you to unmute, I would love to get some input on there. I'll look for it. So if I see you unmuted, I'll just jump you in real quick. But I don't expect that we will see this diminish, these interest rates diminish, which means we're going to have our inventory continue to go up. Okay, this is important. The more the market becomes balanced, which is what we're going to, not a buyer market or anything else, it's going to be a balanced market. But that's anywhere from 4 to 6% months of inventory, by the way, for everybody that needs to know that. We're currently in our market at about 4.5 months. I'm in the Orlando area, so our market was about 4.5 months of inventory based on active homes, not based on the properties that have sold. I use active properties for that. We're pretty balanced at this point, which means you can expect to be on the market for 60 to 90 days. That's not unreasonable. That's going to freak some people out because we haven't seen that for about 5 or 6 years. Okay, so you're going to bring a value to this, but more importantly, there's not 4 or 5 people clamoring for a property unless it's priced really, really well. And as you go through this, the conversation I would encourage us to have, sorry, is a big loop to come back to here, is Mr. Seller, let's be prepared for the worst case scenario and let's negotiate for the best. The cool part is I would love to suggest that we offer, and this is going on current stuff that they're telling us right now because it's not, none of it's finalized yet. But I'd love to suggest that we offer some form of compensation and closing costs and all that can be used towards compensating their agent. Because if we give a little, we don't have to give a lot. And we always want to expose ourselves to everybody. And with that being out there, that would indicate to an agent that, hey, there's compensation to be had here, which is great. I'm going to push this property because while they shouldn't, they will. So as opposed to us just blatantly offering for a $500,000 home, 2.5% in closing costs, why don't we offer 1% in closing costs? But we're going to structure it so we can go up to 2.5 if we need to, which is basically standard value for properties. Remember that conversation I had about for sale by owners that if they're saving, we're going to save? This is going to apply. What I'm really looking for is a couple offers to work with so we can negotiate everything. Now, the only way that we're in a position of power is to be priced properly for the market to attract as many people as we can. I'll take care of the marketing for that. I'll take care of the negotiating as well. But we're going to need to entice some other people. Now, we don't have to do it all at once, but let's keep that in our bonnet. I'm going to structure the listing agreement, and this is in my state, I'm in the state of Florida, that says we have a total cooperation of 5% that we agree to. But I'm also going to put in the end that it is at the seller's discretion how that additional 2.5% shall be used. Now, they are very possibly going to change the listing terms, and I'll adjust accordingly. I have to have fluidity with this as this all rolls out. But what I want to do is at listing, get the seller to acknowledge the 2.5% additional, and of course, my 2.5%. And Mr. Seller, once they acknowledge, yes, I will absolutely, I understand, we're going to keep that in the back. Now, also understand, Mr. Seller, I have every intention of selling this myself. And in doing so, we're actually going to save you a lot. I will obviously have to have legal protection on both sides. I'm going to be representing both sides for this. There's a lot more involved in that representation, but I don't want all of it. I will only take a 1% and put 1.5% back in your pocket. So ultimately, the goal is to save you that additional $7,000, $8,000, $9,000. That's my mission in life. Now, the truth be told, and I mean this greatly with great respect, I want to start with the most painful possible, which is I need them to acknowledge that we are going to very possibly want to work with the strongest offer, period. The commission really doesn't matter. The strongest offer does because that's going to give us the greatest probability. That means we need to make sure we're attracting everybody. Hence, 1% cooperation in current market, what we're doing. This is our strategy going forward. I'm going to throw this out there, and I hope that this is going to happen. And I know this is going to happen not this week coming, but the following week. We are there's 15,000 of us within our brokerage who will be doing every day at 11 a.m. We'll be doing a mastermind class from some of the absolute top agents in the entire world, top team builders, top everything, commercial. We are building pathways for success. Now, this is a shameless plug for my business partner, Bobby Baldor, who has the best strategies I've seen, and I'm not going to take away his thunder. I've already asked him to be on one of these calls, and he has, of course, said yes. When you see it, get on it no matter what. The guy is freaking brilliant in what he's done and where he has moved positions with this market. And he's also one of our business partners. So if you're bored and you want to reach out to him, I mean, he's the real deal. The guy closes 40 to 50 by himself, no VA, no transaction coordinator, no buyer's assistant, nothing. And all that, he's the best father I've ever seen. I know because he lives 5 doors down. Okay. Unbelievable as far as what he's doing. All right. The seller, our job on the compensation part is to let the seller know very clearly that if it were for sale by owner, wouldn't you want to have that savings that they're realizing, that appraisers have acknowledged that the commission was built into the price, and without commission, there's a possibility that the price would decline, reflecting that standardized commission. It's logical based on value. Hold on a second. got that disclaimer part off beforehand. Christian's there going, guy's a shyster. Just had to cover that, man. Just had to make that cover. I am 100% committed that this is the best service for a seller. That if we have a property that's on the market for 30 days, that we are going to be in a negotiation. If we have a property that has everything working very well, it's impossible for me to get my reach out immediately except through distribution and my marketing, but I can't create those relationships. That's 30 days in. I want to be prepared to offer something to the buyer side that is looking at this, which means on the MLS, we're going to commit, we're going to cooperate, but which means repair costs or closing costs. I want a great position for my seller because I can negotiate much more early in the listing. You need to know your market stats for your particular area. How long is the average home till it goes under contract? And also, how long is the homes that are sitting on the market on average? Now, you may have to, we use a matrix MLS. So I'm able to go by county. You can go by diameter where you focus, whatever it is, but you've got to know your market stats for this. Okay. You're going to be an expert in listing properties. Every one of us has to be. So a quick recap for those that didn't get on until just a little while ago. You have got to know your listing presentation cold. I'll let you in on a little secret. Everybody should challenge themselves to this. You'll need to have, because professionalism is the name of the game, you're going to need to have a pre-listing package that is both that is both digital as well as physical. Drop it off, show up, be there. Send your pre-listing package, email your pre-listing package. When I go to a listing appointment, we give them a specific time frame. This is how long we'll be here before we get there. We want them to know we're going to be here. I don't encourage you to do this unless you practice it a lot. We have a 19-minute listing presentation. We will be in and out in 19 minutes. Our goal is not to take your time. Our goal is to gather the facts we need to make an intelligent assessment on your property. Now, if you have questions, it'll run a little longer, but maybe you say, 34 minutes, I'll be in and out, or 52 minutes or 42 minutes. The longer you're in the house, the less probability you have to take a listing. For everybody that's watching that knows this, that's taken listings and has lost listings because they hung out in the house too long, my wife is incredibly social when she wants to be, which is almost all the time, ironically. We were in a listing a couple of years ago. We were just talking about this. And we were there for an hour, and then we ended up being there for 2.5 hours. We became really good friends with those people, and we did not get the listing, but we were really good friends. And the reason we were not getting the listing is because we really became friends, and they were really needing somebody to list their home, but they loved us. They thought we were great. We weren't professional. That's kind of a bitter pill to swallow. Ollie, I just lost you, and I'm coming back now. Can I get you to unmute? I wanted to cover, ladies and gentlemen, Ollie Pertovi. Ollie is my lending partner that I kind of my default that I go to. He is off the hook knowledgeable. Ollie, if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to ask you. Actually, I'm going to do it while I don't have my phone, so you're going to do it. Put your contact information there for anybody that needs to reach out, has a question. What's going to happen with interest rates over the rest of this year into probably 2025, in your opinion, sir?
Well, that's a $1 million question. The key is interest rates aren't going to be that big of an issue that I would tell people. The issue is going to be the monthly payment, because monthly payment comprises of several different factors too. Number one, insurance escrows, right? Insurance is going to be a huge hot factor for properties, especially in Florida. And then it also impacts your taxes as well, because your property taxes are included in there. And if you're in a homeowner association or condo association, that condo and homeowner association, including any assessments that are going to be levied, are going to be calculated in that monthly payment. So the interest rate right now, to be honest, interest rates are trash, right? They're expensive money compared to 3 years ago, 2 years ago. So we just got to deal with that, right? So the key is, how do we get that interest rate lower? But more importantly, if they can afford the monthly payment, you want to make sure that's the factor that you really kind of press on. Right now, I was actually trying to jump on my computer so I could share my screen, but Zoom is having an issue trying to get me up on there. But right now, I pulled one right now this morning, FHA, right? So if you're going FHA, it's actually cheaper, right? So a lower interest rate, like a 6.75 interest rate for a 30-year FHA, is actually cheaper for the borrower than a 6.875. So the borrower would get a credit of $478 for getting a 6.75 rate versus a 6.875. Now, I'm going to go back and I'm going to actually look at a conventional so I can give you guys a comparison. And then I'll tell you what I think rates are going to happen. I think rates are due to come down lower. If you look at the 10-year Treasury, it's just that the expectation of interest of inflation has not gone down fast enough or to the levels that they're comfortable with. So the same scenario that I said on FHA is 6.75, on conventional is 7.93 at par. At par means that there's no points being charged to the borrower, right? They're not paying the lender anything to get that rate. That is the rate they're getting. And then anything below that rate, they're going to have to pay the lender the difference. What I would tell you this is the biggest reason that most people don't buy right now is the monthly payment and closing costs. So it's going to be interesting to see how this NAR settlement will impact buyers. What I would tell you is on conventional loans, seller contributions are limited to 3% of the loan amount. So keep that in mind. So if they need closing costs or you need to roll the buyer agent commission into that, they're limited to 3% of the loan amount.
Now, this is unconventional, is that correct?
Unconventional, not FHA or
FHA
VA.
is at 6%.
6%, and you can actually go higher than that depending on the situation.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah, if
there's
you just go,
opportunity to mortgage, to roll into the mortgage, which is what you're doing. You're mortgaging your closing costs, less money out of pocket. Ali, because this is relevant to what's going to happen in the coming months. I think we're going to have an increased level of inventory. We're going to have buyers or sellers that are on the market longer, and they will become highly motivated, which means compensation for the buyer side, in my opinion, won't go away. But as the listing specialist, which we all are, that's why we're on this call, I think we're going to have that conversation. Forecasting forward based on inflation, based on the fiat money that was printed, and a lot that has gone to cause turmoil. Do you foresee us getting inflation under control? And by the way, Ali's also a financial genius, in my opinion, so I'm comfortable asking him this and listening to what he has to say. Thank you for putting a number in there. Do you feel that we will get inflation properly under control by the end of the year?
my opinion, no, I don't think we will. I think inflation. I think inflation is there, and here's the reason why. The reason why inflation is going to be tough to control is the jobs market is still hot. You know, the Fed looks at two factors when they're making their decision to reduce rates, and this is a great consultation you should have with your buyers, sellers, and investors. The Fed looks at two things. Number one, their target is to get the inflation down to 2%. Now, usually what that inflation number is, it usually doesn't include gas or food or anything like that. So really that 2% is core inflation. That's more of an economic thing. But 2% inflation is their target. And anytime inflation numbers come above that, which is like 3.2, it's not going to be a recipe for the Fed to want to lower rates. They want to keep the rates higher to slow it down to control inflation. The second portion that a lot of people don't talk about is unemployment. Fed always, if you read their minutes of their meetings, they say it's two components, inflation and unemployment. Unemployment needs to be above 4%. Anytime unemployment gets below 4, they will not reduce rates yet. So core inflation's got to be 2%, unemployment's got to be above 4. And so the jobs market right now, this is one of the reasons why most people in mortgage had thought that by late spring, early summer this year, 2024, mortgage rates would start to come down. And the problem it hasn't is because the Fed keeps looking and saying, okay, inflation, even though it's been controlled well, it's still above our 2% target, and it's not coming down. It's going actually higher. And then unemployment is not going higher. It's actually coming down, which is exactly what they don't want. The Fed will reduce rates the moment they get close to 2 and unemployment goes above 4. Now,
The only other, I should put this in there. So just so you guys know, the meetings that are coming up, they're every 6 weeks apart. The next meeting is June 11th and 12th, and then July 30th, and then into September. I think it's fair to assume we're not going to see these numbers go in line. They may, and that's terrific. And if they do, the Fed can do an emergency meeting very easily. That will indicate an emotional response with the interest rates being dropped amongst both buyers and sellers. We have a herd mentality that we can't avoid. I'm part of it as well. They do that, I'm gonna be like, yay, let's go. I don't see that happening. And in September, they may look at it and say, we're close. November, it can be possible they lower it because they want a good season. Herd mentality, exactly right, which is a very possible option to do. The interesting thing they're meeting is, Ali, I believe it's after the election. So it's not, none of this is political based, it's economic based. So let's get the politics crud out of the way.
yeah, I
But
don't think politics is going to make a big
no,
difference in
not
that
at all.
because it's beyond that right now.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that a lot of people aren't looking at, and I look at this. So if you really want to get a behind the scenes, big hedge funds, private equity firms that are looking at the market, you need to rate the Case-Shiller index every day. You can just Google it and take a look, and also mortgage wire news is also a good one. But you have to remember, in 2004, the US population was roughly 300 million. Okay, we're trending to about 333 million now. So we have almost an additional 30 million, which is the entire population of Canada that's been added to the US population. And the US population is expected to get to 350 million by 2040. So the reason I say that is because the fundamentals of the real estate market is supply and demand. And you have 5 states. You got Nevada, Arizona, Texas, Florida, and parts of Georgia, Tennessee corridor. I'm sorry, part of Georgia, North Carolina corridor. These are driving the housing market because there's so much more demand than there is supply. And then here's one thing that I learned this week. Case-Shiller came out and said there's roughly 28 million homes in the country that people just don't want to buy because they're either built in the 1950s or 60s. The roofs are lower. They're not functional. They don't have the latest finishes, things like that. So it's not just the lack of housing shortage of new units. It's also the fact that there's homes that people don't want to buy, or they're in areas that the population is not moving to. I'll give you an example: West Virginia, parts of Ohio, where people are not moving there. They're moving away from that. So it's putting even more pressure. And then lastly, the cost of construction is expected to go up another 6 to 8% in the third and fourth quarter of 2024.
Wow.
So again, that's going to put pressure on the housing market. They said that for every 5 buyers, for every seller right now, there's 5 buyers on the sidelines. And if interest rates go down by 1%, that's going to be 8 to 1. 8 to 1. That's why I'm saying right now, if you're working with a buyer, can they afford the monthly payment? Forget the rate, right? Because the rate we can adjust as soon as rates come down. But if they can afford the monthly payment right now, is the best time to get in, get below market cost, get some seller concessions. And here's the other thing: let's get creative on some of these seller concessions. The seller, just the concessions could be unsecured debt, for example. So, for example,
Lost Jelly. You're on mute, buddy.
sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yep, back again. Yep.
So come up with creative ways to actually go ahead and do that. On conventional, if it's 3%, if they're putting less than 10% down, so 90% loan to value or less, it's 10%. If they're putting between 10 and 25%, the seller can contribute up to 6%. If the buyer is putting more than 25% down, the seller can contribute 9%.
Wow.
Okay. Now, what is seller contributions to? That also goes back. So if they're a builder, to be able to buy down the rate and everything, those are all considered seller contribution. If they're picking up the appraisal, that's considered contributions. Those are all contributions to keep in mind. But as far as rates go, one last thing that I would tell you is some people don't want to refinance later because they say, well, if I'm doing a 30-year loan and then I finance in 2 years, my 30 years gets reset again. Well, that's not the case. Like, for example, at Motto, what we can do is we can do a 28-year mortgage with the lower interest rate. So their actual amortization doesn't get reset. It saves them interest overall. And then one last thing I would tell you is that the cost of renting has still not come down as much as people had hoped. And in my opinion, I don't think it will, because if you look at over the past 60 years in the United States, rents have doubled every 10 years. So rent you were paying in 2014 has now doubled in 2024. And I'm pretty sure that by 2034, rents will double again. So if you're in a position that you're going to live somewhere for 3 years or more, you're much better off buying than renting. And the fact that rents are doubling every 10 years in the United States.
Love it.
I hope that answers it, George.
A ton of stuff is in there. It's a lot to unpack, and I appreciate it very, very much. Summarizing it, because we're focusing on this is great to have that information, but I want to make sure we're focusing on the seller side. What we're hearing very clearly is to help a buyer who is sitting on the sidelines, we're going to have to be creative. We can offer compensation to them. I don't believe that cooperation is going to go away. In fact, I think that once we get to the point, which will be very soon, around July or August, where the sellers are like, oh my God, homes aren't selling right away. Reductions are happening. It's not the seller's market anymore. Bring me a buyer. This will happen. Be prepared for this. With the end in mind, you better have a good listing presentation. You need a pre-listing package. We've covered all of this. You need a great present practiced listing script that doesn't take more than 30 minutes start to finish. That will help you greatly. The longer you're in a home, the less opportunity you have to take the listing. You need to be competent in what you're doing in marketing. I advise you to get involved. If you don't already have a great marketing plan set up, please take a look at Listings to Leads. You can watch it on YouTube and find out exactly what they do and build out what your marketing looks like. You're going to need it in your pre-listing package, and you're going to need it when you show up at the house. Your pre-listing package should do the conversation for you. Our conversations at the property should be about what's happening in the current market. We have a 52-day, in our current market, we have a 52-day to contract rate. That's how many days it takes for a property to go under contract. However, Mr. Seller, it was 89 days last month. It's 93 days this month. That's the supply of homes that are on the market that haven't received. So we're seeing our inventory go up. We're seeing the time for those to sell go up. We need to be prepared, and we need to gather all the buyers. Listen to this part. I would suggest that we originally have a conversation about a cooperation that needs to be present when we're looking for and bringing these buyers. I'm a great marketer. I'll bring a bunch of people to the property for sure. I'm going to try and work exclusively, but I want to plan this as if we're working with another real estate professional who's representing their buyer, and we are still getting the highest possible price, not having to wait. Is that okay with you that we talk about worst case scenario, Mr. Seller? Remember, you're always in control. Yeah, that's fine. Great. Now we're having the conversation at 5 or 6%. I cooperate 2.5%. Up to you on how you want to do it. I'm going to offer, if I work and I bring the buyer, which I'm going to do everything I can for, it's going to exceed any other offer out there, period, if I bring the buyer. And I don't have to have as much insurance and do as much that I'm involved with. So I'm going to offer you a savings of 1.5%, or however you want to structure your own. So really, Mr. Seller, you'll only have a total of 3.5% commission. Won't that be great? See my head going up and down? It's called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Put it on the table. No, we can no longer say this is what it is, but we can entice them with a 1% cooperation that can be used towards whatever, because we want the buyers coming. Your job is to help the seller realize that they're going to get more by offering more. Don't forget the for sale by owner conversation. Mr. Seller, if there's a house that's offered for sale by owner and the value of that property is $500,000, but you know that they're saving $25,000, don't you want some of that savings as well? Yes, I do. Makes sense. Great. Okay. Well, my question would be then, and something you should consider, that appraisers are fully aware that cooperation fees, the cooperation expenses that we have, are built into the sale price of the home, and without them, the sale value can go down. That is a viable, real option that an appraiser may choose to use and exercise. It's not really what the value of the house is. If you were just selling it across the board for sale by owner to somebody, the value would be probably about 5% less. Just throwing it out. That's what it looks like. Get your commissions negotiated up front and what you're going to cooperate up front. Do not go into a listing presentation with, well, you don't have to pay a buyer side. Not at all, because the truth is you're going to be those 92, 95, still on the market, not selling because it's not reasonable unless you're amazing at this. I hope you are. For you to be able to really get out to all the agents. The syndication gets our stuff out there, gets our properties out there. All right. A lot to unpack. By the way, if you look at the chats too, the down payment assistance or what you can cooperate, what you can get for closing costs and will be conforming for FHA and all, I'll put in the chat. We'll leave them in there for you guys to grab. This is not a bad scenario. I just need everybody here to do exactly what my friend Bob Bretz did when he got started, what I did when I got started. This is 20 years ago. You're a listing agent. This is going to be a challenging market for sellers. They need you. Please get your listing presentation squared away. Get your pre-listing package squared away. There's videos that I have taught on that, which have full everything you need included, and they're in our YouTube channel. If you stick around, I'll put it in the chat box if I can figure out how to find it. That ain't my world. You have got to be better than everybody else. And you have got to practice these too. And here's why I say this so much, folks. If you don't practice this, it's going to show. They're going to know you're not good at it.
Speak convention. And here's what I found, and this is...
Sorry, that's just a recording going. Here is our GPS Global Partners YouTube channel. I'm going to put it in the chat for you. It would be working with sellers, the tools. That's exactly what it's called. Got a pre-listing package, everything else. Last thing I want to leave you with, then we're going to open up questions for a few minutes, and I have to go to Coach Bill Pipe's training that I'm involved with. I didn't go to the morning session because you guys matter that much. Starting not this week coming, which, by the way, Mother's Day is on Sunday. That was really for me because I forget that sometimes. But for all you out there as well, don't forget the ladies that supported us. Not this following week coming, the week after that. Every day at 11 a.m., there is going to be a mastermind going on. They will have...amazing speakers. I think we do a pretty darn good job with this. By the way, I'm going to come back to a question. I've got to ask you on this one. This is 11 o'clock every morning. I'm going to give you guys information so you can opt in for the emails and the text messages. So you'll get notified of it. There's 15,000 of us, some of the best agents I know, some of the best coaches I know. There's how to do commercial, how to do investing. There's so much knowledge based in here. We're like, how can we give everybody the tools that they need to be massively successful? I'm pretty sure that this is the model that our brokerage is going to end up following. We've been working on it for 3 months to get it perfected, and it's rolling out. Don't miss it. It's 11 o'clock. It's called Top Agent Nation. It's put on by my sponsor and great friend, coach and mentor, Jeff and Marcy Willems, as well as Scott Lewis. And there's 15,000 agents that fall into this particular group of partners. And we are bringing crazy stuff. It takes what we're already doing at GPS and brings it up like 35 levels. I'm so excited. I am a servant in this. So some of you have watched me put on these presentations, and some of you have watched me do my mastermind calls in the morning. For the people that I can see, a show of hands, who thinks that this is just off the cuff and I don't do anything except show up and talk? I'm up at 5. I'm working on this at 6:30 or 7. This one was actually a little more freeform because Jackie and I have been talking about it for a couple of days because we're repositioning ourselves as well. But some of these things, I have 150 classes that I have built where I'm 3 to 4 hours into it. And I say this because hopefully it comes across as if it's relatively fluid. I have ADD off the charts, so surprised I haven't lost completely. But I practice. And you're going to have to as well. And some of you are probably thinking, because everybody does, there's always somebody out there that's thinking this, and it doesn't make you crazy. It makes you actually really normal. Oh, I'm not going to really list any homes. That's not going to happen. Somebody's going to call you and say, oh my God, I am. Because what will happen is when you start saying, I'm a listing agent, I'm a listing agent, I'm a listing agent, you're a listing agent, by the way. You, talking to you. When you start saying that, things will start showing up where they're supposed to. And all of a sudden, you're going to be like, holy shit, I got to go on a listing appointment. If you haven't practiced your listing appointment, it's going to be horrible. The first one I went on, I'm going to tell you the story. Everybody's probably heard this before. I'm going to give it to you anyway. I was calling for sale by owners exclusively. I said, I will never drive by a for sale by owner without stopping and knocking on the door. It's 4 o'clock. My son's in the back. He's like 3 years old, 4 years old at this point. I see one in a cul-de-sac. I'm like, shit. I turn. I've got a golf shirt on. I've got khakis on. I go talk to them. They're out in the front yard for sale by owner. We talk for an hour. I tour the house. I said, well, why don't I come back tomorrow and show you what we do to list the property? They're like, you know what? That'd be great. We're thinking of putting it on the market, and we like everything you've said so far. We'd love to meet with you, George. What good time tomorrow? So I show up the next day tomorrow. I got a button-down shirt. I got my tie on. Yeah, I'm a listing agent, boss of the maker. That's it, Christian. I love it. So I got my tie on, everything else, my shirt. I sit down. I didn't have to tour the house. I've already done it. The husband sits on the left. The wife sits on the. Never ever let them split you apart. Move them so that they're both in the same place. Because as soon as you look at this way, the wife is going. You look over to the wife, and the husband's like, shoot me. So I'm sitting there and I'm going back and forth and back and forth, and I'm having a conversation with these guys. I'm presenting to them. It's my first listing presentation. I think I'm pretty good at what I'm doing. 3 to 5 minutes into it, the wife gets up, comes back with 2 paper towels. Remember, at this point, we're talking 20 years ago, they didn't have little portions. These were 2 big ones. She gives me that and a glass of water as I am literally flop sweating everywhere. At the risk of being crude, ladies, I am terribly sorry. I had boob sweat. Okay, I'm not kidding. I did. It was that embarrassing. It was on my shirt. It was sweating through there. It was horrible. The husband leans over about 5 more minutes. He goes, it's okay. You're doing great. I did not get that listing. The reason I didn't get that listing is because I was not prepared. I didn't practice. I didn't do anything. My now ex-wife, a still great friend of mine, can still do my listing presentation because I went home and I said, you're going to listen to me list a property with you every day for the next year. And realistically, 3 days a week, she got a listing presentation for 52 weeks straight. Never had flop sweat again until I didn't do a listing presentation for a couple of months and then went out against my biggest competitor and best friend at the time, head to head. I beat her. But flop sweats came back because I was nervous because I knew it was a big one and I wasn't practiced. Practice your listing presentation. You're going to need it. Don't wait. Do it now. Do you have your pre-listing packages? Great. Because there's going to come that time where they're like, hey, listen, you know what? We're going to put our house on the market. Come over and talk to us. Can we do it next week? No. Today's really good for us. Are you sure? I mean, well, let me call a friend. This isn't Sole Survivor. You're going to have to be skilled at this. You guys can do this. You can do anything you put your mind to. A couple things I say all the time. I'm going to finish with this. Time on task over time. If you put time and effort into this and you're on task with what you're doing, which is improving your business and improving your skill set, and you invest this time and you continue to do so, you will become untouchable extraordinary. The last thing is, and I always love this part, go out and tell somebody today that you absolutely love them, that they're important and that they matter. That is the key to database. It's the key to a happy marriage. It's the key to good kids. It's the key to everything. But the truth is, it's most important to the person you're telling that to. Let them know that you think they're important. And by doing so, you're going to make their day better. And ironically, it'll make your day better too. Now, if you did that with just, 5 people a day where you genuinely worried about how well they were and letting them know that they were loved, and you did that, every day, and that was your godly mission that day was to make sure 5 people knew that you loved them, you'd be talking to, let's say you did that 28 days a month. I can't do higher math. That's 140 people. That is almost assuredly 14 closes over the course of the year. You don't even have to ask for a referral. The fact that they love you is what matters. Learn about database because that's the secret to it. All right. My wife isn't back yet. She's coming back from the doctor in just a second. I've got 12 minutes for you. Totally open if you have any questions. If not, I am going to go get my learning on because I'm a student too, especially when Coach Pipes is teaching. Anybody got anything they want to talk about?
George, for those in Florida, the Hometown Heroes program will be back out in July 1st. So if there's going to be about $100 million allocated, that first time home buyer for Hometown Heroes will be eligible, and it's going to go quick. So if you have a buyer who wants to be able to participate in that, they got to get ready in June. I think that the first 3 to 4 weeks in July, the program will have already exhausted its funds.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. Good to know. So if you're working with a hometown hero, which let's cover that real quickly. That's a teacher, fireman, police officer. Am I getting that right, Ali?
They actually expanded it. So now it's not just based on profession. As long as you work for a Florida-based employer and you're below the median area income, which actually the limits are much higher now. So it's like 130,000 for most counties. You automatically are eligible to take advantage of the program. It's up to $35,000 non $35,000 basically loan. So for every 100,000 that you're borrowing, you can get $5,000 as a loan, but there's no payments, there's no interest. It's just a second lien on the property. And the only time you have to pay it back is if you sell the house, if you refinance the mortgage, or pay it off, then you have to pay it back. But it'll help for closing costs. It'll help for down payment. And you also do get a couple of breaks on the interest because the lenders do also that participate are offering special rates for that. So it's good to know out there, especially if you've got buyers. The number one thing that I see besides income limitations when I look at loans is cash to close. That's the number one issue that I see with buyers is cash to close, because a lot of buyers don't realize that your cash to close is not just your down payment and your closing costs, but there's also prepaids, transfer taxes, things like that you have to be responsible to pay at closing. And that's usually what pretty much derails the deal. Even though they may have excellent credit or their income is solid, cash to close is always a challenge.
Ollie, I appreciate that. I really do. I'm sorry, I'm concentrating on my next project, and I knew that you were providing great information. Anybody have any questions before I jump off regarding what you need to do as far as your listing is concerned? Any other comments or things that we can cover for you real quick? Awesome. All right, guys, have an amazing day. Go out there and tell somebody you love them. Already covered that. Thank you for being here. Look for the Top Agent Nation 2 weeks from now. It'll be coming out 11 o'clock classes, 11 o'clock Eastern time. Sorry, I'm selfishly using Eastern time. And please remember this. We are all in this together. We are here to help. I know I speak for Ali. He is, if nothing else, a servant leader for sure. I am too. Don't hesitate to reach out to me. You can find me on Workplace Chat. If you have my cell number, grab it. It's 407-925-8433. And y'all are awesome. Have a great day. Ali, thanks so much. God bless y'all. Christian,
Take
thanks
care,
for
guys.
coming on, brother. I had to call you out, man. I'll see you guys. Have a great day. Bye now.